Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekend for a free $200 credit.
Today, Sink or Swim. Aure and I are going to review the sites that you've submitted over the last couple of weeks to us and some business cards. Stick around and watch us work. Bienvenidos al episodio número 39 de esta semana para Diseño para la Red. That's probably the nicest one that I've ever gotten down. If you're joining us for the first time, this show helps you accelerate your web design career. My name is Jose and Aure, and I am your host. Joining us always is Creative Director Aure Guimon, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here, as usual.
From Venezuela, aquí como todos los días. If you're joining us for the first time also, this is not a tutorial show. So if you might be looking for, hey, how do I use XYZ software, or how I design a website, this is more like the daily show, but for web design. We, again, help you accelerate your design career, web design career, by teaching you creative, business, technology, and marketing secrets from experts like ourselves and our guest experts. If you're looking specifically for a tutorial, right here below, you can see lynda.com and Team Treehouse, which are places that you can look at. They're down in the comments or in the text below on your YouTubes. If you're watching us on iTunes, go over to YouTube and check it out. But again, How Interactive University, Team Treehouse, lynda.com for really awesome tutorials. I want to talk real quick about How, because I'm leaving tomorrow for the How Interactive Conference in Washington, D.C. I'm really excited. It's right here, the information, Washington, D.C., September 27th through 29th. If you're in the D.C. area and you watch This Week in Web Design, I'm going to be doing a lunch the first day of the conference on the 27th in a Mexican restaurant nearby there in Washington, D.C. It's a Dutch date, but anyone who wants to show up, I'll have a sign-up form at theschoolrocks.com. And also, I'm going to have a survey for those of you who are attending as to what you want to get out of the conference. I am opening the conference and I am closing the conference, and my goal is to find out from you guys, both before the conference, but there the first day of the conference, what do you want to get, and then tracking, what do you want to get out of the conference? Then tracking that throughout the conference, making sure you're getting it. And at the end, the last segment of the conference is going to be, hey, did you get what you wanted out of it? If it sounds like the user experience process, it's because it is. So please go to theschoolrocks.com right now if you're watching this on Wednesday and you're going to be attending the conference. If you view the show, This Week in Web Design, also let me know if you want to show up, and also go to theschoolrocks.com to sign up for lunch. And finally, if you want to be on stage with me at the beginning, I'm going to interview 3 people that are attending the conference about what they want to get out of it. So it's an opportunity for us to hang out on stage at the How Interactive Conference. Doesn't come around twice. With that, let's actually move right into our reviews. Aure, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's rock this. So the first site that we're reviewing is for a site called FeedMonk, FeedMonk.com, which is the name of the site. And I have it up here on my screen. And Aure, you also probably do too.
Yep.
What the hell do you think?
I don't know what I'm looking at. Gotta be honest with you. I mean, there's a big empty page there. After a little while, I see the logo. I see there's some text under it. It's telling me that it's the fastest and easiest way to find live blogs covering events you can't attend in person, which is an interesting value prop. I guess I would want to see some event photography or something in there that kind of alludes to that.
So you would like to see more about what it is that it does, so you don't understand what it does.
Yeah.
What do you think about the name FeedMonk?
I don't understand how the name is tying to the overall brand. I guess I would love it if that somehow were the case. There's this idea, I mean, the feed part I get, the monk part is getting a little bit lost, so it could be interesting to, maybe it's a kind of a funky monk that's kind of out and about going to events and stuff.
So it's from viewer Thomas Bass. He is a longtime viewer. He watches us, and he submitted FeedMonk via Facebook, and one of the things that I immediately told him on Facebook is, the FM moniker does throw me off a little bit because of FM radio. So at first I was like, oh, this is some type of radio thing.
Yep.
Second, you're right. The idea of what does it do doesn't come across right away. And the feedback I gave him very specifically, I have it here on my Facebook, is, how about a mascot potentially, of a monk or something like that.
Yeah, that could be a great idea.
It could be kind of dorky, but
maybe that's the right audience,
And our mascots, you know what, mascots is one way to go, but the issue becomes what do you do? So what you were saying earlier when we were talking about this before the show, you talked about Dropbox. What was your thought about Dropbox?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about Dropbox and services like that is, there are states of the application or of the user experience where you actually haven't actioned anything yet, so it could potentially be an empty screen. But, sites like Dropbox resolve it really well by developing a really nice illustration kind of style and then dropping that illustration in certain areas where you could potentially be faced with something like what we're looking at right now with FeedMonk, right? So you could have an interesting illustration here, and it just tells you, hey, go to the top of the screen, there's a search box, and, start populating some results in this area, or just something. An empty kind of screen is just very intimidating for me.
Well, and Thomas has been watching for a long time, and I know he watches this week in startups with Jason. And one of the things that a lot of ambitious young entrepreneurs who are looking to either transition from their existing jobs into the wonderful world of high growth startups and get what they call in Silicon Valley FU money. Meaning get really rich really fast. Which, well, I'm not saying that that's what Thomas's goal is. I'm just saying that we all, as ambitious entrepreneurs, want to do something like that. One of the challenges is, I think, that as we're experimenting, you might not have enough feedback from both users, but also from mentors and from just showing it to somebody. So this is an opportunity for you guys, obviously, to do this. Many of you send us your sites. A lot of it is designers that are actually working on their sites and portfolio sites. Today is a good reflection of that. There's entrepreneurs that want to, do a startup that's an online startup like Thomas. And then Joel Bolton, which sent us a work. And he has a physical company, meaning a company that produces product in Australia. So that's a really nice mix. Did I have a point here?
No, I was just going to add to that. I think there's nothing wrong with people just being really ambitious and putting their working prototypes up to share with people. I think that you just have to put it in front of a couple of people when you do that, and just get their reaction, and also put yourself in their shoes, right? You might know your product really well, but if you come to it, as a person who is not familiar with it and you get stuck, that's an issue that you have to resolve.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I really believe that there needs to be a better union between designers and between entrepreneurs and a better dialogue, or the ability, at least at a minimum, to dialogue between them. So some sort of forum or format for that allows us to kind of contribute to what you're doing. So one of the issues would be, for an example, if you look at the Dropbox idea, simplify your life and this whole thing, and I'm watching it right now. They have the little video, et cetera, like what you do. I would prefer, and Dropbox is famous, by the way, for going out to market at the beginning with this little video, and a sign-up form for emails, and people going berserk about it
super quick,
really quickly. So
it gets the idea across.
It gets the idea across. Yeah. So the challenge, Thomas, with FeedMonk, you've built the functionality, which is great because I know it works. You showed it to me. I saw it working for the Apple iPhone 5 release, and now we're looking at it a few weeks later without all the feeds for Apple there, and it's so get people excited about what you're doing, not because of the solution, but because of the problem. I don't even know what the problem is that I have there, that I want to watch, that I want to watch events live without watching them on video. I want to watch them on Twitter, and I want to watch them on blogs, which, by the way, is an interesting and it's a good thing and something that's happening a lot more. The question is, how do you get the people that have that problem or have that, not the problem, who want to have that, who have that goal or who have that need, and you really explain it to them really well versus not, which is what's happening right now. So again, keep on iterating. I think what you're doing is pretty awesome, and again, it's commendable when an entrepreneur puts it out there and
it's tough to put
and
stuff
just
out
does
there.
it. It's tough to put it out because your ego's in the way. You know what? F your ego.
Just do it.
Just do it if it looks bad. And probably one of the best examples, and one of the things that, and I always love an opportunity to talk about the school, is actually, I put out the school, and I'm a designer, I put out the site just bam, without really necessarily thinking too much about it, and I really iterated on it, and it's evolved, and there's been stuff that doesn't work, it's not as elegant as I want it to, for example, right there on the homepage right now, if you type in your name and your email, I hate the fact that it's touching the border, I hate the fact that it doesn't give you confirmation. I can change that, those are 5 minutes, but it does capture the email, and it does download the PDF that I'm offering. It does say clearly, learn the standard system for managing user experience and technology teams, which, by the way, is different than what it says down here because I'm trying out different value propositions or different,
It's a work in progress.
What we do. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, how do you clarify what you do, to who you do it, how you do it?
Right.
Which is the brand exercise that we do frequently with people.
Totally.
What do you do? How do you do it? For who do you do it? That really helps a lot. All right, cool. So anything else, I mean, for feedback, what would we do as next steps in the last 15 seconds?
I think the first thing I would do is just have a page that clearly communicates the value proposition front and center. I think it's here,
Hi,
but it's
are you
really
so and
small.
so? Hi,
Yeah,
do you have
know,
this
like,
problem? Would you like to
exactly.
watch live events via blog?
Exactly.
Via the web, via Twitter?
Right.
Feedback
It
helps you
almost
do
needs
that.
like a page before this.
Yeah, it needs a landing page with the
Yeah.
value proposition. So, Thomas, that's what you should do. Your next job is to really put a landing page together that says why you need FeedMonk and how you solve that problem before you even get to the product itself. So that's what.
Just a cover for your book.
Sink or swim? Here's a question.
It's a sink.
It's a sink from Aure. So that's a pretty. There you go. Sink or swim.
Sorry.
There you go. That's a. I like that. The sound effects are nice. For me, again, Thomas, you're a loyal viewer. You've been watching for a long time. I would give you a swim if there were feeds currently there potentially. You know what? Even with I'm very much, not that I'm not the audience for this, but I have a problem with these services because it's not for me. But in this case scenario, just as an advisor, as a designer, as a product designer, I would say it's a sync for me.
Yeah,
also.
and I mean, and for me, it's not even a sync from the design. The design could work.
Design's fine.
It's
yeah,
the
it could work.
UX.
It's a
the
user
UX
experience.
part
Yeah.
of it.
People don't know sufficiently what you're there for. Don't Make Me Think. It's a title of a really great book. All right, so let's move on to our next contestant on Sink or Swim on The Price is Right. So Joel Kraus, what do you think, Aure? You saw the site. It's his portfolio site,
Yeah.
which is.
I think the site is, it's nice. I mean, I like the blurry image at the top. I like the persistent navigation, even though the transparency sort of makes it hard to read when you start scrolling down and it's got content behind it.
Yeah.
There are things that are interesting. I like when you click on the nav at the top, it sort of jumps. It's like very much in line with these long scrolly sites that we've been kind of working on and looking at. The interesting thing is that the site itself looks good. The content within the site does not look great. That's my biggest
So the
challenge with it.
projects he's done. So, yes, I agree with that. So the site that encompasses your portfolio is actually really great. Whether you're using a WordPress template or whether you're using, however you did it, whether you do it in Adobe Muse. This is similar to the Adobe Muse redesign that we did of somebody's website.
Yes.
Very much so. I like, hi, I'm Joel, a freelance web developer and designer. You should capitalize probably I, so period. I make the web work and look good. I think that's really nice. So good design is a lot of clear thinking. Good design is a lot of clear thinking made visual, Edward Tufte. So I like the quotes, etc. I like the fact that it's a longer page. Right here, Joel, you shouldn't have this big gap.
That's a challenge,
And you
yeah.
should really probably have this copy be a little bit bigger, even if you are filling a template out. Down here, it stays okay. It does. The generated form's a little wonky, but that's okay.
It's interesting
This is
because
the biggest.
the content that's within the color fields and at the top, that nice big typography, the slab serif looks good, but then all the actual his personal
What he had to
content,
potentially customize a lot more. It's not
does
good.
not look great. The thumbnails, and then there's the about section, and then the form at the bottom. They seem like they were just kind of dropped in there without too much design.
Well, so that brings up an issue, of people providing services in the web design space to clients, who might be using WordPress templates and customizing them to execute, which is fine. I mean, it cuts a lot of work out, and it provides already an existing framework, almost a CMS. Traditional designers, are like, like incensed at the fact that, well, that's plagiarism. You bought a blah, 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 blah. I mean,
Purists.
Purists, sorry. The school website is actually a WordPress template that I've customized very little, other than to add some
If
color.
it serves your
and
purpose.
I mean, I changed the fonts, I changed the logo, I made some modifications, but it hasn't been intense. My point is not to design the site. My point is to put the content out there. But back to servicing clients with this, I feel that the gap between the design of your portfolio and the work you have in your portfolio that you're servicing clients with, it's too big. So the challenge is now fine, you have a really good looking portfolio. Now your work has to get as good looking as your portfolio. And I'm going to go through it and say, you can edit it. So I'm going to go through each and every single piece, and I'm going to tell you what to leave and what to take out. And you're going to say, well, but then it doesn't show enough work. And this is an argument. This is an argument. If you're an agency and you want to show volume and to see what type of big clients you have, fine. Even if the work is not it's a little crappy, leave it in there. I had this fight at Razorfish because I was in charge of the marketing at Razorfish in terms of the design, and we were about to do our portfolio. We've acquired 14 companies, and we have to put all the portfolios together. Our work in New York, which we had done, was like, oh, it's great, we love it, because we did it. But then suddenly you had offices in Europe, you had offices on the West Coast that had work that wasn't as good as what the work that we had done in New York. And I was editing it out, but he came back and said, no, leave it in.
Put it in.
And I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah,
because we were about to go public.
Totally.
So who cared about the work?
It was a
mattered
business need.
Volume. It was a business need.
The business need.
We worked for this and so company. It's great. And on the West Coast, even if it looked like crap, it wasn't a design decision. It was a business decision. In your case, I'm hiring you to do design or development, so it doesn't apply. The rules don't apply. You're not going public anytime soon. So first project, MJM Agri. Again, you did it's a site, an information site for what looks to be an agricultural vehicle company of some sorts, either renting, leasing, I don't think manufacturing. But I wouldn't necessarily put that site into your portfolio. This one's fine. The Prairie Falls, Murray Gray, Angus Stud, Home Cattle Gallery, About, etc. Interesting. That I would leave in the portfolio. I think it's sufficiently, whether you use a template or not. The biggest issue I have with this one, this is actually a previous version of it.
That lock glide looks pretty good.
I would take this out just because the header is just
the Prairie Falls is
kind of fugly.
The one right.
But there's one before it that is actually not bad.
Yeah, and then there's the fourth one over.
Lock light. You can leave that. It's the same template almost, I think, as
that's true.
the Prairie Fall. You're just using the same template and doing it. But again, it looks better. Leave it in. Fish Creek.
That one doesn't look
fine.
super great.
It's fine, but it's fine.
It?
Yeah, I would leave it in there. I mean, it's same thing. It's not necessarily like wow, but I would leave it in there. Co-work. That's a tough one, where dream ideas and imaginations become innovation. Not a fan of the site, meaning of the design overall, so I'm not sure if leave it in or take it out. So what I would probably do is Wild Dog Web Solutions, leave that in, leave in Fish Creek, Lock Glide, Prairie Falls, and take out the rest. Now, again, the question becomes, well, I want people to see that I've done work in other verticals, not just, cattle.
One thing that you can do really quickly to clean this up is to, instead of putting the thumbnails in there, just take the logo or a little kind of motif from the design.
Nice idea. Right. To crop into it.
Right.
And to just show a motif of the idea, not this whole thing.
Not the whole, the shrunken thumbnail.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe what you might do with MJM is just have kind of maybe the logo and a close-up of one of the vehicles.
Totally.
Nice idea.
Totally.
So Aure just, what I call Solomoned it, which is like King Solomon, cut the baby in the middle. All right. Aside from biblical references, let's move on. Cutting babies. So we have about 30 seconds left.
The white
thoughts?
Typography on the yellow doesn't work, and then the actual the hi guys, I'm Joel. I like that he's saying that, but the text needs formatting. The paragraph width is too wide. You should only have 10 to 16 words per line.
So you should say, "Hi, I'm Joel." Drop that.
Drop it, and make the text
F and the
a little
R
bigger.
too tight. The F and the R
everything
too
is
tight.
so big, the slab surf is so big, and then you've got this tiny type that's kind of hard to read.
I get it. So it's really the difference between what the body copy is and that.
Yeah.
And I would also say right here, the I should be capitalized, and I make the web work.
Yeah.
Cool. So thank you, Joel, for submitting your site. Really appreciate it. I know you've been wanting us to review this for a little bit, and thank you for your patience. We try to review your sites every month or so when we can fit it into the show schedule. But again, submit your sites on Facebook, facebook.com/TWI Web Design, and also on Twitter, which is all below in the comment in the YouTubes. You can also submit your sites via Twitter at Web Design Rocks. On Twitter at Web Design Rocks. Web Design Rocks. So let's move on to our third and final.
Oh wait, we have to do the sink or swim.
Sink or swim on Joel Krause's on the site. So let's not
on the site, not on the work.
His entire portfolio or all his work.
It's a swim.
A site's a swim. So Joel, I'm gonna give you a swim also. You did a really great job. I love that. It reminds me of Donkey Kong for some reason. All right, so moving on. Let's move on to our third and final contestant on today's The Price is Right. It is going to be Joe Bolton.
Joe Bolton.
From Australia, longtime viewer, probably watching right now. I think his kids watch also. His son watches the show too. So hello. And if you're watching live, Joe, let's talk about that. So Joe Bolton, the business cards for Delicious Improvements. We've been following it on Facebook. Again, if you submit your work on Facebook, you know, I take the time to look at it. We take the time. More importantly, other people comment on it.
That's true.
Which is really cool. So looking at it from where it is, these are the business cards. It's obviously a slightly different format than an American format. I actually like this format and have used it for American business cards. And Delicious Improvements does letterboxes, barbecue kitchens, front fencing, and you know what? Very contemporary, very modern. What you would probably see here in high-end homes, like in Venice, and you know where slightly more affluent folk live in Southern California. But my understanding and what I know from Australia, you have a far higher level of sophistication even across the board within affluent communities and middle-class communities. So the fanciest freaking letterboxes or mailboxes I've ever seen, and the fanciest fencing and barbecue kitchens I've seen outside. So he does a really great job at that. We gave him a review on his site a few weeks ago on not on Sink or Swim, actually. We're doing how do you improve your web designs. That was the episode. So what do you think, Aure?
There's just a couple things. I mean, overall, I think the cards work. They have the information that you're looking for. The only two challenges I have, I think the side that's on the green, it looks a little bit too web for me. Like
it looks like a website.
It looks like a website, which
it's not a website.
Right, it's not a website. It's a business card. So it's got, that letterboxes, barbecue kitchen, front fencing looks like a navigation to me, as opposed to, saying like you sell these products. The icons are fine, look a little bit too big to me. And then I think the biggest thing that's not working for me is on the other side. He's got the QR codes.
So let's look at the other side. So I have the other side here, and it's also sideways. So you have to turn the card.
You have to turn the card,
One format is one way, the other format's the other way. But then the URL, which, by the way, Joe, shouldn't have the www, just deliciousimprovements.com.
Yeah.
People at this point know that it's going on the web, and you don't need to even input it when you put it into a browser. It is a long, Delicious Improvements, it's a long
URL.
Name and URL. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, I can't talk. I mean, The School Rocks is a long URL too, but it's a
little shorter.
A little shorter. Delicious Improvements.
Delicious Improvements. But in any case, I mean, I think the QR codes really aren't working on a business card. I mean,
there's too many. Why is there 3, Joe? Can you respond to that?
Joe?
Why are there 3?
Why are there 3 QR codes? And why are there QR codes at all?
Well, people like QR codes. So let's talk about QR codes.
Yes.
So there's argument. Remember, we did a whole QR code presentation to our team at the group like 4 years ago.
Yeah, like we did research
we did research on QR codes. Back then, it was kind of hot. We were hoping it was going to take off. Has it taken off?
Not in America.
Well, people put it. I see them places.
Really?
I see them.
I've seen them in a couple places. Yeah, that's
what
true.
I've read, and from a general. So here's the question. The convenience of it is that if somebody, let's talk about it as a user flow.
Yeah.
I get Joe Bolton's card. I'm interested in getting a letterbox, or I'm interested in, let's even a higher price item, I'm interested in getting a barbecue. And I put on the QR code and I go to the website on my mobile. Everybody uses mobile. Mm-hmm. So it's more likely that people are going to look at it, and it gave you the ability not to, you don't have to type in.
You don't have to type in the
Delicious
phone number.
Improvements.
That's true. But I do have to have a QR code reader.
But they're downloadable. There's things that people don't have.
But if I don't have them, I have to download them.
Yeah, if you don't have them, you have to download them.
Right.
I'm not a fan of them. So what I would say is the following. Again, I'm going to cut the baby in the middle here. Have one QR code to your site. If your site reformats to mobile, then you'll have the primary information. So hopefully it's a responsive kind of template, which I think it is, because you worked on it with James McVatty all the way across the pond from the Queen's far away lands in Australia to the Queen's mainlands in the UK. I don't know what the hell that meant, but they're collaborating. But the point is that, definitely have just one QR code that goes to a site that reformats for mobile so that you can have the information on there. But keep it to one. And then I have a problem with the formatting, like, the 3 QR codes dividing the copy, the text. Just put the text in one chunk. So like, deliciousimprovements.com at the bottom, Joe Bolton at deliciousimprovements.com, and the phone as 2 little kind of, like we did a business card issue the other day, Joe. You should have seen that. And Ari's working on it right now, kind of trying to reformat this for you a little bit.
I did it really quick. It's already done.
So let's look at it. Bam.
Well, bam.
Look at it right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's exactly what you should do to the cards, Joe. So what we'll do is we'll post these on the Facebook. They look great, Ari. Can you actually move the green one a little bit to your left so I can see it, because the teleprompter's in the way for me. Yeah, there you go. Let me see. So the icons are smaller, delicious improvements. I do have a problem, Ari, with the scale and the alignment of delicious and improvements.
I agree.
I don't know why. Like, I think it should align to the left and just be really simple.
Yeah, I mean, I understand he's like trying to stick the eye like in that little gap, but it looks kind of odd.
But also he's trying to make delicious be larger and more like, prominent than improvements. Like,
I agree.
The
logo needs a little bit of work.
The logo still needs a little bit of work. And he's been working on it over and over again and reformatting it, which, by the way, Joe, is the right thing to do.
Totally.
You've been iterating, you've been learning along with the show, and you guys can bring the camera back up to me. You've been learning and iterating along with the show, improving your identity. I'm curious to almost do Joe's story on the show.
Definitely.
Like, do an episode, because he's not a designer. You're not a designer, Joe. You're not what we would traditionally have as our audience. I think you started watching This Week in Startups, Jason's show, and came across to This Week in Web Design. But over the last several years, he's
really been a fan. Yeah.
Well, no, he's implemented and done and followed along
learned a lot,
and learned a ton.
Well, we had James on the show. I think we should have
James
Joe.
is a developer.
That's true.
So he's in the business, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying it's interesting is because as an audience, for me, it's interesting as a next stage in the evolution. Keeping in mind that for me, This Week in Web Design, aside from being a personal mission, it's a mission from God, like the Blues Brothers. Actually, that'd be a really cool, like, we're the Blues Brothers.
That's cool.
No, but okay,
we need
no
like
singing.
little hats.
We need hats, fedoras. Beside from the fact that it's my personal mission to do what I do here every week on This Week in Web Design, the fact that Joe is coming from an entrepreneurial background, so it's entrepreneurs who are coming in and embracing and understanding design. He's already open to it because it's a very high design business that he's in already.
Yep.
Fancy ass designed, like, stuff.
Yep.
It's not like a U.S. kind of contractor who's very unsophisticated, no offense to U.S. contractors, or who might not be into designerly things, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it is an interesting case study. At a global level, do we have an audience outside of web designers and web design?
I mean, he fits one of our profiles, right? He's the entrepreneur.
He's the entrepreneur, correct. And he took it in his own hands. But,
right.
but he's not an entrepreneur in the traditional sense that he's not like a tech entrepreneur.
Right.
So there's entrepreneur across the board.
Totally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that as an experiment for me, so what I was saying is that aside from this being my mission, it is also an ongoing and engagement with you, with the world, with our viewers, as to how best can we help you with the information that we have. Keeping in mind, Ari charges people a lot of money to do what he just did for Joe's cards. I'm building the school, which is to teach you guys so that you guys don't have to spend all that money to do some of this. But it's an experiment. It's really understanding and knowing, okay, what do people need, and listening to you, and then responding with what your needs are. Like this. People love Sink or Swim, and that's why we're doing it. So let's talk about the How Conference, which is going to be, again, on the 27th. Today, you're watching this either live right now, and it's about 2:15 on a, well, actually, it's about 2:45, 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, or you are watching this on a Wednesday when we post it up on YouTube. So Wednesday is the day before this conference has started. So if you've already signed up and you're in Washington, D.C., please go to theschoolrocks.com and and fill out the survey for me. It's right there on the homepage. You can see it in one of the touts. Buy a ticket. If you're in San Francisco and you're coming up, here's a secret. It's going to also be below in the YouTubes. If you use my name, Jose, uppercase, I think, or lowercase, whichever it works, you get about $50 off the ticket price. So I'm saving you $50 right there. It's a gift to you. But again, don't miss it. And people, why would you go to a conference like this? People, I was talking to Dave Cohen.
Just get out
and said, well,
like,
it's really
talk to
expensive.
people.
It's out of my budget. I don't want to spend this. I need to pay taxes. All this kind of stuff. Would it be worth spending the $1,000 to go to a conference for 2 days?
Because the connections you'll get and the potential projects that'll come out of it will more than pay for itself.
Yeah, that's what I've experienced. I remember a few years ago, it was at the worst part in the economy. I had to make a choice of whether I was going to spend almost $3,000 because it was $1.50 or $2,000 for the ticket for the conference, and then it was another like for hotel and for all the other stuff. So it was in Boston, and it was a venture capital conference. What the hell was I doing there? But I went to the conference as much as, and two things came out of it. One of the panels I heard inspired me so much when the venture capital dude said that the three things he sees as trends moving into the future were social, mobile, and education. That's one of the things that he was investing in. I'm like, oh, interesting. And then a lot of education conversations happened on that panel after that because I asked a question about it. Why did he think that was the case? And therefore, it really inspired me to do, at that hotel in that weekend, the business plan for the school. I actually, in one weekend, I ended up getting inspired and locking myself up and doing it. So there's a lot that comes out of it. I think Aure mentioned the most important thing, which is the connections.
Totally. Absolutely. I
You
mean,
make great connections. So there's inspiration, there's connections.
Right. Right.
It pays for itself.
It pays for itself.
It pays
it's an
for
investment.
It's an investment. So it's an investment in your business if you are making the transition from traditional design to web design to digital to interactive, which is, of course, what the conference is called. It's a big investment for you in your education. And I think it's a small price to pay for what you are about to get or to what you will get out of it long term. So that's my
it's a big
my
name
2 cents.
conference. Like, a lot of people will be there.
A lot of people will be there. A lot of great speakers. Karen McGrain, who spoke last year, who was my counterpart. Well, I wasn't the highest level management at Razorfish. I was actually regional. I managed offices specifically. She managed at the corporate level user experience. So for 10 years. And her talk was just like, I walked away like, wow, super inspired. I had an opportunity to have dinner with her while I was there. Just that was worth me being there. But, but in this case, I'm attending to speak. But if, again, you're debating still going to Washington, D.C., Dave Cohen, you specifically, if you're debating still going and you're going to be in the D.C. area, you're on the East Coast, do whatever you need to do, make the investment, and again, if you can't, don't do it. I'm not going to ask you guys to do something that you really shouldn't or that's in your detriment, but I don't think it will be. If you can do it and you can say, look, this is an investment into my practice, I personally would do it. So all right, moving on. So that's the how. And then the next thing, let's talk about the inner circle. The call is coming up. Today's coming up this Friday. Is that right? What's the last day of this month? Aure, can you check for me?
The last day
the 28th.
of this month.
So the Inner Circle program is part of the show. It is the 28th. There's no graphic for it, which is fine. Thank you so much, Michelle. But the 28th, every month, we do a call. So I need to send out the email today at the end of the month, and we set goals for you as we go along. Every month, we've had more and more people join. If you go to TWI Web Design, and I'll just bring up TWI Web Design, and you sign up for the Inner Circle program, which is right there up at the top left. Don't be scared. It says $500. It isn't $500. It's $50 a month or $500 for the year. So you save $100 to do it. Or you can just contribute, be a monthly supporter. You get access to the back channel, which is a Google forum. And then you also get access to the calls, et cetera. But more importantly, forget about access to having me coach you personally every month. You're getting something that's pretty amazing, which is you're helping support the show occur and pay for the following people. So bring up the title card of who does the show, and we can do the credits here at the end. This show is made possible by you. It sounds like NPR. This show is made possible by viewers like you and by our sponsors. Without that, so you don't have the title card either. That's fine. Again, thank you guys so much, everybody who makes the show possible. Join us next week again at the same time, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. I think in Australia the show's at 10:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. So join us again next week when you watch us work.